high school students that are working on a really cool problem, and I'm going to let them explain all that. But basically, Trigg County High School has taken on a project to utilize Land Between the Lakes kind of as a laboratory, and to work on a problem-based learning project, and that's what they're here to present. So to give you a little bit of background, we got involved earlier this year where some administrators from the school came out and looked at several different sites at Land Between the Lakes with some of the LBL staff, and then kind of picked some areas of interest with water quality challenges and questions. And then later on in the summer, and I believe it might have been the hottest day of the year, I'm not sure if it was pretty close, all the students came out and split into different areas and met staff at different locations in Land Between the Lakes to talk about water issues, whether it was recreational based or impacts from different uses at Land Between the Lakes, or just water quality in general. So they're here. They've been working hard with the information they've gotten. They've broken into small groups and teams, and there are representatives from each of their teams here to talk about where the project is right now. So I'd like to introduce Shannon Burcham. He's principal at the high school, and he's going to kind of talk about the program a little bit, and then the students are going to come up and tell you about their project. Thank you.
So I'll talk as little as I possibly can and let our kids do most of the talking, because that's who you want here anyway. It's great to be here. This is home to me. I am from Trigg County, and Trigg County, a lot of the land area here in Land Between the Lakes is part of Trigg County, so it's good to be here. I know a few of you, and the rest of you, it's nice to meet you. It's good to be here. I am the principal of Trigg County High School. 2 years ago, we started a process to apply to be a district of innovation in the state of Kentucky. There are 7 school systems in the state that are districts of innovation, and when you think about innovation, you think about 21st century, you think everything revolves around technology. Well, I would counter that with everything that revolves around having the capacity and the ability to deal with individual students and help meet their needs, perhaps in a way that we have never been able to do before. So I'm going to run through just a little bit of what our plan is in terms of the overall district of innovation. Processes at the high school. A lot of the work began at the high school, but it began because we started listening to kids, and they can share these links with you. So Darren or someone else can share both of these links to you, and they're available for viewing. So if you want to see more or hear more, you're welcome to that. There's some literature there, 3 or 4 pages that's really condensed down from about 200 pages of an application we sent to become a district of innovation. So I'm going to run, and we'll let the kids talk about the work they're doing, because that's what you want to hear. Back up just a second. So Trigg County High School, we are a district of innovation. Our vision, we do have a vision that is, if I can get back to it, has been defined in terms of what it is we want to become. Our mission is to prepare kids for college and career. We want kids to be successful. We want them to have experiences at the high school level that are going to be experiences that they would have as an adult. We want them to have those experiences. So that means you're going to have to get out of the classroom. But our vision is to be innovative, to try to find ways to make our educational processes better every day, to have a passion for learning. If you sit in a classroom, 30 chairs and rows every day, and that's the type of instruction you have, it's going to be hard to do that perhaps. So if we get kids up and out of the classroom and into things that engage them and they are concerned about and interested in, we think that's going to benefit education. It's going to benefit our kids, we know. In terms of a cognitively challenging curriculum that's personalized, fosters tolerance and diversity, and helps them realize their potential. One thing that we're looking at is how can we use Land Between the Lakes. Our conversation this summer was, can we get to Land Between the Lakes, or can we go to a large farming organization in Trigg County? Can we do one of those two things? We centered around Land Between the Lakes because we thought there were more options, more possibilities for us to bring our students into. So we want our kids to get out and get into educational experiences, but we also want our students to, at some future date, possibly be able to come over here and shadow and work and have the opportunity to do some unpaid internships. So we started with kids in terms of our process. If you wanted to watch, you'd hear J.B. Hendricks and Alex Carr, who Alex just graduated, J.B. still with us, that started talking about why can't school be different than what it is. And they started the whole process. We had 3 students and 3 adults that began the process. Anytime, Anywhere Learning, we do have technology. We're 1-to-1 at the freshman and the sophomore level, so students have Chromebooks. You guys will have yours this week. They don't have them yet. It's been a challenge in terms of getting everything here, but we will have every freshman, every sophomore will have a device. We do have opportunities for blended learning. We have, in the past, where we've had a couple of foreign languages, we'll have up to 5 within the next 2 years, where a teacher works with an instructional assistant and an electronics program to work through languages in Spanish, French, German, Latin, and Mandarin Chinese. So we will offer the same things we could have offered with 2 personnel, but we'll be offering 5 courses. We have a comprehensive system of supports. We have an option where a student comes in, takes a math class on an A day, right? And gets help on a B day, or gets to accelerate. And then we have flex days. We've also partnered with Murray State, so we're looking for all the partnerships that we can develop. At Murray State, we have 45 students that go 1 day a week to Murray State and will graduate at the end of their senior year with 25 college hours. Our local Rotary organization is another partner. I know some of you are involved in that, to the tune of about $50,000 this year to help offset the cost of tuition for these students and others that are participating in college experiences. Competency-based learning, what we want to be able to do eventually is, if we're going to study biology, why can't you do it out in the field? Why can't you go out and have an experience where a student can demonstrate their understanding of biology by coming back into the classroom, demonstrating through a project or a product that they've developed, or a task that they've been able to work through, that they understand biology. So we're working towards that as well. And then problem-based learning is going to be the concept that these young people are going to talk about today. Last year it started in kind of a contrived setting in a classroom. We created time in the school day for all freshmen to go through a problem-based experience. We've taken it this year, and they'll fill you in about that in just a moment. We had teachers that responded last year to our work. We've got kids that are able to show what they know in different ways. Just one example, had a special needs student who was presented in front of 200 adults, in front of other students, and led a group in a presentation, did an outstanding job. I walk into a classroom 2 days later, and I've got a teacher that's having to read the content of a piece of literature to the student because they have a disability. But yet they can stand in front of 200 people and do a presentation and lead another group of students. Sometimes we miss out on the strengths and talents that our kids have, and we think if we can do it in a different way, education in a different way, it's going to provide opportunities for every kid to shine and develop their talents. And we think it's the right thing for our kids. This is the other option that we're looking at, and eventually we want our kids out and about. We would, before the year's over, we want to have every junior and senior out of our buildings for a week, have an educational experience. They'll get to map it out. What is it going to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? If they come out and they find out that they don't want to be a physician, or they don't want to be a veterinarian, or they do not want to be an engineer after working with one for a week, that's a valuable experience too. But eventually, when we're completely competency-based at the high school, we'd like for every student to have 4 to 6 weeks of their junior and senior years to be out and about. I've got a daughter that's a sophomore at the University of Louisville, wants to be is going to be in the field of medicine. Didn't take a single course in high school because she was taking AP coursework and she was trying to get through. She was in the band and wanted to do that. She didn't have those opportunities. A couple years from now, we'll have every student that will be able to have those opportunities regardless of the curriculum that they're studying. So we want that to be an option for every student. And then we're doing advisory in a new way. That's my advisory. We have 44 different groups. Any of you in the same advisory? Perhaps not, but we've got kids grouped from seniors to freshmen in groups of 3 or 4 from each grade level in an advisory with every type of adult we can have in our building, working with those kids. And the seniors, freshmen are watching the seniors go off to college and go off to careers and do things in a different way. And it's been, I would say, fairly supportive and one of the best things we've done with our kids. So rethinking everything we do at the high school. Okay, so you can look more at that. There are a few links there you could.
My name's Lauren Oliver.
My name's Matthew Garnier.
I'm Marshall Evans.
Braylon Mitchell. I'm Jensen Price.
And I'm one of the freshman teachers, Scott Hill. I do science at the high school. We're going to go over this, what we're doing, our first project. I'm going to kind of go through some of the slides pretty quick and just, kind of go over, but I want to get to the point where they talk and discuss how we came up with our problem and hopefully how it leads to, a better understanding between our community and LBL, and maybe we can solve some problems that can help you. Okay, we are a district of innovation, as Mr. Birchman said.
We did have a representative from High Tech High School here. That's where the conversation began this summer. High Tech High is in San Diego. I have 2 teachers right now. They're on a plane, and they're going to San Diego for the next 3 days. That's terrible, I know. But myself, Mr. Ladd in the back, and about 6 other teachers went to San Diego last, 2 years ago, and went to a high school where you've got kids that are always doing something that's problem-based. I have an agriculture teacher with me. He walks out and sees a kid cutting a 2x4 just outside the school building. There's a Starbucks 100 yards one way, and there's a shopping center 200 yards the other direction. And my ag teacher asked the student, he said, what keeps you here? And the student says, why would I leave? You know, and I wish that all 637 of our students would say the same thing. Why would I leave? I'm not engaged in the work that I'm doing. Why would I leave? It's a great place to be. So High Tech High has been with us. We got some folks out there, and they do a really good job of problem-based learning. We're trying to put our spin on it as well.
Okay, and obviously problem-based learning, we're trying to turn learning from an abstract process into a concrete, solution. So instead of kids learning about scientific concepts, English concepts, and concepts of social studies, we're trying to make it an application process where they come through and they have a finished product. And they get to use their brains and figure out, hey, I can solve something. So, and it creates and inspires them to from what I've seen so far, to become better students, to want to do more, to take that leadership process in the community and care. So we're using these 21st century skills, kind of going through these real quick. Sorry, this is it's kind of like more of a teacher part.
We did have a group of teachers that came over this summer. We had High Tech High, a group of teachers, a group of students that were upperclassmen that came over and did the exact same things with teachers. So we were in groups with kids and adults and worked through these types of experiences.
Okay, and this is as Mr. Burcham was talking about during the summer. We had High Tech High come out to the school and work with teachers and staff and certain students about these 21st century skills and problem-based learning.
At the end of the day, we came back to the high school, and you weren't with us on that particular group. We had 2 different trainings we went through, but at the end of the day, we came back and we did a project slice. So you take away, you take notes, you take pictures, you interview individuals, you bring any information that you possibly can back and represent it in your group. So these are some project slices that our high school staff and students that work with them put together. We stole things from the drama club, the play that was going on that afternoon. I heard about it about 7 o'clock that night, and we put them back. But we went and tried to find everything we possibly could to do a representation. And everything comes up from eminent domain. That was one of the things that came up in a conversation about Land Between the Lakes, to water quality, to a number of questions and concerns. So it's basically a brainstorming activity to try to figure out a problem that you'd like to solve.
Okay, it starts out our PBL is what's in the water. Well, obviously it started out with what's in the water because this summer we talked about what kind of activities can we do. And with LBL, and one of the ideas I had was like, whoa, does fishing with lead sinkers affect water quality? Then it started from there, and it spun into everything from invasive species to erosion to chemical pollution from the transport industry, from barges, runoff from roads, and everything from there, to include lead and agricultural runoff. So that's where we started, and now the students are shown some problems. Well, what could be problems or what they perceive to be problems, and then from that point they have to decide what is the problem that they want to focus on, and they have to come up with a solution. And the hard thing for students is, they want to kind of be told, kind of spoon-fed on what the problem is, but it's all on them. They have to choose. And so obviously that's developing, a lot of qualities about them, the 21st century skills. And so that's where we're started on right now. When we get to the next slide, we're going to talk about some of their individual problems and what they're focused on, and we're going to actually start a research on solutions here next week.
Our staff came together early in the summer, and the conversation from a contrived setting of problem-based learning, where we had up to 60 kids last year in a setting, and said, okay, let's do it. One of our projects was texting and driving, distracted driving. At the end of the project, kids had to do a presentation. We wound up getting a $25,000 grant from State Farm That was a good benefit of doing the activity and getting kids engaged in the activity. But then we also wanted to figure out how can we take that work and actually put it into the classrooms. Rather than have this contrived setting where we pull 60 kids together, how can we have every freshman participate in a problem-based learning experience? So the trend from this point forward is going to be to integrate within social studies, science, and English language arts problem-based experiences that connect all together. So if you're setting in Mr. Hill's science class, or you're setting in an English language arts class, or you're setting in a social studies class, you're exposed to this common thread of concepts and problems across all three.
All right, our first trip out there, we called the Hook. We took them out to Barkley Beach, and they got to have a little fun, and we had hot dogs and lunch out there for them. They got to have 2 hours of games and activities before we came over here, and that's when we started going to different areas like Ferguson Spring, Hematite Lake, and other areas, Turkey Bay. And we called it the Hook to kind of get some interest in it, and to have some fun. So anyway, here's some of the pictures from the first day, and I'm going to have Matthew, if you would go to the podium and talk about your idea.
Well, my PBL is about the problems in Ferguson Springs with the beaver population. What they told us was that the water coming out of the springs, it's clean, but when it goes into that held back area, that it's still water, so the bacteria grows on it a lot. And one of the problems with that is it could, harm the animal population. And things that they've tried to fix it with was they tried to drain the water with like a drain pipe, but the beavers went in, they clogged it up with mud, rocks, and sticks and stuff like that. And I haven't really been able to research much because we don't have our Chromebooks yet, so I'm still trying to figure out more about it. And yeah, that's about it.
What they've done at this point is everyone's defined a problem, so they're going to talk to you about their problems, and you can ask questions if you have them. But within the next 8 weeks, they're going to come up. They're going to make sure that's the problem that they want to solve and look at. And it may not be anything new. It may be something that is just an existing problem here at Land Between the Lakes. But they're doing the work that an actual person here between the lakes would do, and they're going to try to come up with a solution. So,
does anybody have any questions?
And they made them all. So.
When did you start on the project?
When we first went down there, we
Late August?
Yeah. We went out there, we saw the springs and stuff, and that's
Where
what.
do you stand now on the project?
Have you? Everyone in English did an article on eminent domain.
Yeah.
And in their English classes, they will construct a documentary to detail their work. In their science classes, there will be a lab summary that'll connect, and in their social studies courses, there will be an infographic at the end that ties together all the statistics and the data and the area. We do have our flex days. Flex days once a month. Trigg County High School has a flex day. We do have groups of students that will not just be in between the lakes, but in the Trigg County community, and they will be doing global positioning of these sites that they're going to test water. So Coach Hill's probably going to talk about that a little bit more, but they'll be testing various water samples throughout the community and in between the lakes as well.
And we've also done a project slice in Coach Hill's classroom. We made a 3D model of our problem and possible solutions for it.
Do you have any idea of how many beavers are and where they are down below the springs? Did you get a chance to get that far down?
We didn't really, they didn't really discuss that, but they've dammed it up, and it's, they said it covered over 60 acres. It flooded 60 acres of water from the built up over time.
This is good feedback. Those are the questions. If we can get kids to ask the right questions, then everything else will take care of itself. That's what we want kids to be able to do. Ask the good questions, ask the right questions, and the knowledge is out there. I think the statistics is going to be interesting. You start looking at those populations, seeing how many there are. We had conversation coming over. Can you kill a beaver? Can you trap it? What do you do? And there are ways to take care of it. Matthew was giving some ideas.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, give it back to Coach Hill.
All right. Obviously, they're broken into 3 or 4 person groups, and they had to do a 3D representation. That was what Matthew was talking about, the project slice. And they presented these to the rest of the class, and then they had to do a critique of everyone's project slice, and they went through and gave constructive criticism comments, and from that they got to see other people's ideas, and some of them changed their initial idea to, we had a guy go from something with erosion to Asian carp all in one day. I'll let him talk about that in a little bit. But when Mr. Burson was talking about the water quality, we spent some money this year on some water test kits. We're going to be able to test everything from heavy metals, concentrations of heavy metals in the water, down to the microgram, to anything that's agriculture related, from phosphates, nitrates. We'll test chlorine in the water, dissolved oxygen concentrations, to fecal chloroforms. I mean, everything that you can imagine we're going to test for, we're going to test for. And we're going to use, we're going to sample several sites in Lake Barkley, in Kentucky Lake, Hematite Lake. We're also going to do Little River at different source sites. And anybody familiar with Cerulean Springs, the sulfur spring, we're also going to use that as a sample. And then we're going to use a control of distilled water, so they can measure the results, the experimental with the control, and then they can see. And then we're going to do a lab report for that for science. Okay, so that's what they're going to get from us. So it'd be interesting to kind of know too what's in the water at different sites, how much lead is in the water, why would there be lead in that water, and that stuff they'll go through and figure out why is the lead there? Is it from recreation, or is it from a natural ore, or whatever? So once we get these Chromebooks next week, they'll be able to do a lot of intensive research. So we're kind of looking forward to finding out what's out there too. So, and last week we're also doing other off-site visits. We went to the water department last week, and they got to see how our water in Katy, so at least the city water, is where the intake was from, how it's treated, and we got to talk about some controversial stuff like the fluorination of water. Is it really positive or negative? So, and that stuff they'll be able to research too again next week once we get to having Chromebooks. So. We're not going to tell them what the answer is. We're not going to tell them if they're right or wrong. They're going to decide. So that's the intent so far. Just a couple pictures of the project slice and going on. And then Turkey Bay. Braylon, would you like her project's covered in Turkey Bay? So this is Braylon Mitchell.
Some of my group members went to Turkey Bay, and when we were there, that we learned that there was a big problem with erosion. And from erosion, the people that ride there on four-wheelers and such, they don't really use the trails that are already made. They usually create new ones. So with that being said, it creates the erosion problem, and the erosion affects the sediment in the soil and also the wildlife there. My groups wants to, like, at the end of this project, answer like what creates or how does erosion start, what we can do to prevent it, and like what else can we do to stop it and prevent that from happening. So, any questions?
Are you going to look at the people aspect of it as well?
Yes, we are thinking about seeing if we can get a donation, maybe to, like, when people come to ride around, that we can get a donation from them to stop the problem of erosion. So, like, if we got donations, we could probably get somebody to get a bulldozer and, like, fix the problem of erosion to make the sediment better. So then we could probably put fences up and tell them, like, to go on the normal paths that they take and not create new ones that make the erosion happen. Any more questions?
How many people in your group are OHV enthusiasts? Ride four-wheelers yourselves?
In my group it's just girls, but I'm, like, familiar with four-wheelers, but I think if we had the opportunity to, we'd probably all ride four-wheelers.
Okay.
But we're for sure, like, yeah, we're
curious
used to.
how
Yes.
that related to
Do
kind of
you,
fun
do,
you'd
do
like
you
to
think
have.
that you may offend some four-wheel riders if you came in and put up fences?
We probably would, but if we explained to them why we are doing that and what it's going to do to help the Turkey Bay area, then maybe they would agree that it would be best for that situation.
We heard the phrase "love it to death" at about everywhere we went this summer. We want this to exist for generations to come, but we got to conserve and take care of what we've got for the time being. So.
Turn it over to Coach.
Thank you.
Yes.
I wonder if the science group has considered doing water quality studies at Turkey Bay to see how the erosion there is affecting the water quality.
Yes, because I think there's 12 erosion spots that lead to the water source there, and there's probably a bit of litter there that people does like because they don't throw them away there. They probably just leave it out, and that probably does affect the water quality there. So yes, that'd be probably one of our spots that we do test to see what's it in and how that affects it. Any more questions?
We're also going to test too. We're going to take soil samples too and test for heavy metals, just to start. We'll find
Did
out
you
some
have one?
results from that.
And how many groups do we have working on different projects? Some of them may overlap, but
47.
47. 47 different groups. So,
Thank you.
okay.
That's good. Oh, okay. Now zebra mussels. We actually don't have anyone in this group doing zebra mussel, but we have two doing invasive species. Marshall, would you first start?
My name is Marshall Evans, and I'm a 9th grader at Trigg County High School. And this of course is zebra mussels, which is an invasive species in LBL. But my area of focus specifically is the Asian carp invasion in Kentucky and Barkley Lake. And as many of you already know, the invasion started in farm ponds when the Asian carp were stocked in there to help maintain the or to help decrease actually the algae population and aquatic vegetation. And when the ponds, the drains in the ponds, some of the Asian carp slipped out, and they are now in our lake systems. And the problem with this is many of the sport fish that people like to fish for, crappie, bass, bluegill, there's an abundance of them. But what the smaller fish need to eat algae to live, that's what they feed off of. And when the Asian carp eat all that, there's none of it left for those fish. So that's really the problem that we're trying to solve. And I know that many of you have heard about all the Asian carp that died below the dam, and something had to be done to be able for that to happen. So we're trying to figure out how that happened and try to figure out if we can eliminate the Asian carp in Kentucky and Barkley Lake. So are there any questions?
Are you on the fishing team?
Yes, I'm on the Trigg County fishing team, and yes. So that's good. But really what sparked my interest in this was, you know, I love to fish and hunt, so I'm always in the outdoors, and hearing about these Asian carp taking over I don't appreciate that. So we're trying to figure out a way to eliminate this species. Yes, sir.
Have you or will you visit the carp processing plant down here in western Kentucky?
Well, I haven't done that yet. That might be a possibility. I know that they are that people love them in Asia. They're the Asian carp, but they're processed and sent to different places where people can eat them. So they can be used for eating. So we don't just have to dispose of them. Yes, sir.
Not really a question, but you need to call our Marine Fisheries office.
That's good. They need to hear this. Part of the process is getting them. Last year we spoke in front of a bunch of adults, and they got to share in front of their peers. But it's to hear people who understand. You speak in front of people who do the work every day. That's what benefits our kids probably more than anything. So.
Any other questions?
A couple times I already heard this presentation. Well, we can't get anything done until we get our Chrome network from the computer there. Got a friend of mine who's a college professor. This is just kind of, y'all are doing a great job, by the way. This is nothing negative, whatever. But he says the students that he gets today, if they can't go to the web and find it in 2 minutes or something, they just throw the towel in. They're all over it. And just like Tony said there, networking, you will find out in your lifetime that there's lots of people that's had the same problems that you've had, that if you go out there and talk to them, they can help you out. And that's how I spent my career in water and wastewater. I pick up the telephone and I might be talking to a scientist down in North Carolina that wrote an EPA document just to tell him what I was having. And like I said, a lot of people will share their information. There's some that won't, but networking will be your biggest tool out there as you go through life.
That's great advice.
If you want to get rid of beavers, I can tell you how to outsmart a beaver. If you're gonna get rid of a beaver, you got to be smarter than him. So,
I was going to ask you that, I forgot to, but is there any solutions that you guys could see working?
Oh, I know, I'll tell you exactly how to get rid of the beaver.
So you may want to get his phone number.
I mean, without killing it. I've done it before. I drained about a 60-acre area one time. So you just need about 60-foot PVC pipe. So
Well, yeah, the people there told us that they had put a drain pipe in, but they like clogged it back up with like.
Because they can hear the water running through.
Right.
If you put enough pipe in and get it far enough away and slow the velocity down that water, they can't do it, and they will just abandon that dam. They will leave there.
And I had another question about zebra mussels. Like my mom told me that this is a serious question.
It is.
Like you can't dive for mussels.
In Kentucky.
I'm
You
like,
can't dive for mussels in Kentucky or Rockwood Lakes.
can you like drag for them and stuff? Or
They used to braille for them. They have brailing boats.
what's that?
Drag.
You basically take a great big John boat, and you got arms coming off each side of the boat, and they call them brails, but it's like little hooks, and they drag them along the bottom of the lake, and as soon as they hit the mussel, they clamp down on it, and they brought them up.
Why aren't you allowed to dive for
There was so many people doing it that when they got into the mussel beds, it was more efficient for them to dive, so they would just take all of them if they could. So there had to be a restriction put on it.
them? Can't they like take all your diving equipment and stuff?
Wouldn't be good.
They can take you to jail.
Tennessee license.
Yeah.
There's also a fish processing boat down in New Orleans that's headed this way.
Oh, really?
It's gonna be on-board processing of Asian carp.
Really?
Have you ever eaten Asian carp?
I haven't, but I'd like to try it because, you know,
It's as good as anything
good.
out there in the lake.
is it?
It's a different type of fish. When you catch it, you got to put it on ice, and then when you clean it, you got to get rid of all the red meat,
Right.
hard meat, and all that. But it's as good as anything out there. But
All
when
right.
you say carp, 99 out of 100 people turn their nose up. Go somewhere else.
Yes.
Eat a
Hands go up.
hamburger, something like that, or a hot dog.
Right. Any other questions?
You may want to talk to Mr. Murphy afterwards.
Huh?
I will talk to Mr. Murphy.
Okay.
Thank you. We also have someone else dealing with invasive species in Jensen. Would you care to talk about yours?
I'm Jensen Price, and I am working on the Eurasian milfoil in Honker Lake, and this has caused a problem. It prohibits fish and other wildlife to swim down there because it like tracks them up and keeps them from swimming there. And so we're going to try to figure out different ways to keep the milfoil from growing so tall. And also it does create like help for them to like find homes and stuff, but it also, if you get too much, it keeps the fish from swimming down there. So we're trying to figure out how to limit how much you kill. And also there's American lotus in there, which is endangered, so we can't kill off all of it. So we came up with a solution, maybe, that is possible. Kentucky Lake is sprayed with herbicides to keep the Eurasian milfoil out of it, and they do that every 3 years in patches, and so we were considering talking to them and seeing if they could do that on Honker Lake. Do y'all have any questions? Or
What other solutions or methods have you explored?
digging out the bottom of the lake, because Eurasian milfoil only grows so high, because the hotter it gets, the less it can grow. And also we've considered like overturning the lake. We were talking about that earlier. I went to my uncle's funeral and their lake has been overturned. We don't know why, but we considered maybe the density level or something. So we were wondering maybe if that could have happened here and keep things from growing in it. And also putting different elements in the soil, because my dad farms, and so if you don't have enough nitrogen or if you don't have enough certain elements, the things cannot grow. So we've considered those different options. Yes,
One thing I'd like to share, and sometimes we get into this, we talked about it earlier, is we do away with all the bugs, but there are some bugs that do good.
Mhm.
So when you're considering all of your options, maybe consider what could result from doing, like if we get rid of all the Asian carp, is there something that's going to happen because we did that? Is there-
Yes.
What are the consequences to fixing the problem we
That's
have?
what Kentucky Lake, they only spray, I think it's 50% of it every 3 years. That way, certain elements like the bees if you spray herbicides, it kills the bees. And so if you only spray half of it, then the other half still grows and it doesn't create such a problem. Any other questions?
Suggestions?
Yes, suggestions, please.
I just want to comment, I work on the environmental assessments here at Land Between the Lakes, and the kinds of projects you all are working on are exactly the analyses that the people here do in the environmental assessments. So, good work.
Thank
We'll be
you.
looking forward to some of that information.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You have to watch it when you're talking about overturning of a pond,
Mm-hmm.
because when it overturns, it's gonna make Marshall mad because it kills all the fish too.
How does that work? Overturning.
It's got to do with dissolved oxygen and the time of year. If you get a lot of cloud cover and some cold rain, it'll literally almost overturn. All your oxygen levels drop, so all the fish die off.
It's not good, necessarily.
Which that also creates a problem of the wildlife not being able to drink and eat from the vegetation. So we do have to be careful with doing that. So, any other suggestions or comments?
You might look at biological controls or biocontrols. Cornell has a wonderful website.
Cornell?
Would you mind to give me that web address when we get done?
Cornell University?
Cornell University.
Cornell University.
Okay.
Biological controls, rather than pesticides and chemicals.
Okay. Thank
Figure
you.
it out.
Thank you. I was kind of hoping one of them would have chosen Japanese beetles, because that's a problem I have in the summertime. But, it wasn't
Does anyone else have a
problem
present? Anybody else?
Actually, we do.
You
We're
got
kind of
it?
moving away from invasive species, and we're going to kind of move to a little bit of recreation, which is a big thing of LBL. We're going to have Lauren, all of them, come up and talk about her idea, her proposed problem.
My problem is the fecal contamination that houseboats usually cause. Instead of going to a waste or sewage disposal unit, they dump their waste in like around boat docks or the marinas and places like that. And it can affect the swimming areas, and the bad bacteria can get into the water and give diseases to the fish, and you can get sick from depending where you swim or if you swim around that area where they dump it in. And I mean, possible solutions is to raise awareness for it, or because I mean, some of the boaters or boat owners of houseboats don't realize the effect they're causing on the water from dumping their waste in it. Because I know some boat docks have a disposal unit, but not always people go to it.
So it's not against the law to do that?
Well, I mean,
Or they just have to catch them?
they just have to catch them, really. I haven't seen anything about it, but I know it's a problem. And if you catch like a fish who has been around that area, you could get sick from eating that.
You might look at the legislation, the law.
Yeah.
Look at what are the regulations.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
So you planning on working directly with like Lake Barkley and Ken Lake to get some input then?
Yeah, because
Kaiser Point?
Yes, because it can get in swimming areas, and most of the beaches around those lakes and stuff, you don't want your own kids or adults getting in it and getting sick from it.
Most areas that have developed swim
Mhm.
sites are required to take water quality tests
Mhm.
and submit them off, so you might be able to get some data
Yeah,
from them.
we're going for a field trip to take water samples, and from that we can see which area is more contaminated than the other.
Let us know, please. Stay away from
Have you identified the marinas, various marinas? in the
No,
area?
I haven't. Like, last field trip we went to, the beach we actually went to was closed off and we weren't allowed to get in it because of the contamination in it.
Look up some of the regulations on our LRC website, some of the KR, KRS.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and like I said, this is just a recap. This is going through, pretty much talked about everything up here. Now the partnership, this is where it becomes relevant to the students and the staff, and because, and like I said, now it becomes real. When they're here today talking to everyone in this room, they have ownership in this problem now, and it's no longer just something on paper. It's something that they're going to do, and they're going to make an impact. So that's what we look for in the future, as Mr. Burcham said earlier, that hopefully we can, maybe in the future years to come, incorporate where we have students coming out here to work and internships and maybe more integration, working with everyone here at LBL. It'll help improve our schools, it'll help improve our educational process, and hopefully we can benefit you too as well. But yeah, and obviously this is better than just learning something from a book. This is real life, something they can tell the kids about. But I appreciate your time and letting our students speak, and turn it over to Mr. Birch.
I appreciate you letting us be here and continue to help develop a relationship with Land Between the Lakes. It is home to me. I've camped everywhere from Piney to Hillman and a lot of places in between over the last 30 years, and it's home, and it's a good place to be, and we want it to be here for generations to come. So we need to get our kids out and involved. Yes, sir.
On November 6th, it's either at Lake Barkley or Ken Lake. There'll be a meeting of the Four Rivers Basin team. And that's a group of volunteers that looks at water quality throughout this region there. So there's lots of information there. And you can become a volunteer. They usually go out and sample 3 times a year. I think we've probably got enough money left to sample 1 more year. But you could get quite a bit of water quality information of where we've been and where we're headed.
Four Rivers, November 6th.
Yeah, I think it's at Ken Lake this year, maybe at Lake Barkley.
Okay.
But you should be able to go to the, I think it's Four Rivers Water Watch is what it's called.
We do have Marshall, you're a volunteer. You volunteered here at the Woodlands.
Yeah, Nature Station.
Yeah, done that some. So thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Before you guys, we put together some little packages of some Smokey Bear themed stuff for you guys, and we appreciate you coming out. We know it is fall break, right?
It's his fall break.
Yeah, so you're giving up some time here.
They were fed lunch. They were
appreciate it. So, thank you again for coming out to do all this, and we look forward to seeing how the project's lined up.
Thank you.
Do you know any like websites or
People's who you want to talk to. I think that's what I heard from him.